The sky above Earth was no longer blue. It was a perpetual, choking shroud of toxic dust, a sickly rust-colored haze that swallowed the sun and spewed acid rain. Decades of unchecked pollution, relentless resource depletion, and runaway climate change had finally pushed humanity to the brink. Cities lay submerged under vast, acidic oceans, their once proud skylines dissolving into the corrosive brine. Elsewhere, parched, cracked earth stretched for hundreds of miles, baked barren by a sun that now seemed a distant, angry eye. Breathing meant a constant rasp in the lungs, even with the flimsy respirators that were now standard issue, a grim, wheezing symphony that underscored humanity's slow, agonizing death. Life was a daily, desperate gamble. Food was synthetic paste, rationed to the precise calorie. Clean water was a myth, every drop filtered and refiltered through failing systems. The last major human settlements, once bustling metropolis, were now dwindling, struggling enclaves, their domed structures failing, their populations dwindling. The Exodus fleet, a collection of patched-together colony ships, fueled by recycled dreams and the last scraps of hope, represented humanity's final, desperate gamble. At the helm of this fragile endeavor was Dr. Aris Thorne, a man whose idealism had been battered by years of grim reality, yet refused to die. He was a visionary, burdened by an impossible choice, a leader who had to make desperate bets with the last of humanity's chips. His belief in the Xylons' benevolence, despite all evidence of their alien inscrutability, was almost a desperate prayer. Beside him, ever vigilant, stood Commander Ava Rostova, head of security for the fleet. Her face was a testament to Earth's harsh final years, every line etched with the grim realities of survival. She trusted actions, not soothing whispers, and especially not the ethereal telepathic pronouncements of alien beings. The Xylons had been humanity's first alien contact, appearing not physically, but as a gentle hum in their collective consciousness, then blossoming into soothing melodic telepathic broadcasts. They called themselves the Lumens, describing a world of vibrant light and ancient wisdom. They spoke of empathy, shared knowledge, and offered guidance towards a distant planet called Sinderis, a world they described as harsh, but possessing a raw, untamed beauty, capable of sustaining life under the right conditions. The Lumens were the protectors, their essence resonating with peace and a quiet, almost melancholic concern for Earth's plight. They were also, humanity would later learn, subtly suppressed by the dominant species of Sinderis. These were the Ironclads, introduced to humans through the Lumens. They were colossal beings, their forms encased in what appeared to be dark, metallic exoskeletons, their movements precise and intimidating. Their telepathy was direct, forceful, almost a mental shout, carrying an undeniable undercurrent of disdain. They ruled Sinderis with an iron fist, valuing unyielding strength, cold efficiency, and technological superiority above all else. When Dr. Thorne, through the Lumens, made humanity's desperate plea for refuge, the Ironclad's response was cold, yet a chilling form of acceptance. You are here. Now endure. Prove your worth, or perish. They reluctantly granted humans permission to settle in a designated zone, framing it as a test. They even provided schematics for what they boasted were high-tech, prefabricated shelters, claiming they were perfectly suited for Sinderis's unique environment. They sound less welcoming than the Lumens, Commander Rostova remarked to Dr. Thorne, reviewing the Ironclad schematics. These shelters look too fragile for a world of raw energy, as the Lumens described it. It's all we have, Eva, Thorne sighed, running a weary hand through his hair. It's Sinderis or nothing. We have to trust the process. Amidst the fear and uncertainty on the cramped, recycled air decks of the Exodus fleet, there was one constant source of bizarre, comforting levity. Jolly Jim. He was the kind of guy who could trip over his own feet, spill synth coffee down his uniform, and still make everyone laugh. He was constantly cracking jokes, often self-deprecating, and his wide, innocent eyes seemed to miss nothing. He was the morale booster, the one everyone gravitated to for a chuckle. Why worry, he'd quip, nearly taking out a comms panel with an errant elbow. If we die, at least we won't have to do laundry. Everyone knew Jim, everyone liked Jim. And no one, absolutely no one, suspected that Jolly Jim, the clumsy comic relief, was actually humanity's most effective spy. He was always accidentally bumping into key personnel, fumbling with sensitive equipment, and curiously listening to every whispered conversation. His most prized possession was a beat-up personal comm unit, clunky and old-fashioned, that looked like a child's toy. Inside, it was a marvel of human ingenuity, subtly modified to record, analyze, and even transmit low-frequency alien data without detection. While Dr. Thorne and Commander Rostova dealt with the macro-politics, Jim was busy gathering the micro-details, the whispers no one else heard, the subtle shifts in alien patterns. The journey to Cinderis was long, arduous, and filled with gnawing anxiety. Resources dwindled further, and the recycled air grew stale. Jim's jokes became more vital than ever, little explosions of laughter that kept despair at bay. Finally, the fleet approached Cinderis. It wasn't the lush world the lumens had first hinted at. It was a terrifying spectacle, a colossal churning orb of red-orange, perpetually wreathed in roiling dust clouds and streaked with veins of raw incandescent energy. Constant, blinding lightning storms tore across its surface, revealing glimpses of jagged, volcanic peaks. It was a world of fire and dust, a place of immense, untamed power. Humanity's last hope had arrived at a crucible. Momoman, the descent onto Cinderis was more of a controlled crash than a landing. The planet's turbulent atmosphere buffeted the last human ships, forcing emergency thrusters to fire wildly, sending jarring tremors through their already fragile hulls. They finally touched down in a designated, desolate basin, kicking up vast clouds of fine, crimson dust. The air outside was a palpable, corrosive presence, even through the ship's viewports. Quickly, methodically, humans deployed the prefabricated shelters provided by the ironclads. These were sleek, metallic structures designed for rapid deployment, unfolding with impressive robotic precision. Initially, they seemed a godsend. Their internal systems hummed, providing breathable air, filtered light, and a blessed sense of calm against the raging inferno outside. For a brief, blissful period, hope flickered brighter, but the relief was fleeting. The ironclads appeared, not as welcoming hosts, but as silent, imposing observers. Their colossal forms, gleaming dully in the Cinderis light, positioned themselves on distant volcanic ridges, watching. Their telepathic messages were cold, direct, devoid of the lumen's empathy. You are here. Now endure. Your trial has begun. They rarely interacted directly, their presence a constant, heavy weight, a judgment. Soon, the insidious harassment began. It wasn't overt attack, but a systematic campaign of subtle torment. Small, controlled dust storms, more abrasive than natural ones, were subtly diverted directly at the human settlement, rattling the shelters and clogging exterior filters. Their communication frequencies would experience sudden, unexplained static bursts that disrupted calls. Resource scanners, deployed to locate local water or mineral sources, would mysteriously malfunction whenever they neared a promising deposit. The ironclads wanted humanity gone, but they seemed to prefer nature doing their dirty work, perhaps to prove a point about human inferiority. Their telepathic taunts were constant, a low, insidious hum in the back of the human mind link. Weaklings. Parasites. You consume without contributing. Your technology is fragile. You do not belong here. Leave, or perish. They genuinely believed humans were a burden, an unnecessary drain on the galaxy's resources. They openly mocked human reliance on physical tools and fragile electronic systems, viewing it as a primitive, inefficient way of life. Amidst this rising tension, the lumens remained a hidden comfort. They couldn't defy the ironclads openly, but their subtle telepathic nudges were invaluable. Sometimes, a shared dreamlike image would guide a desperate human scouting party towards a hidden geothermal spring, or a faint mental whisper would indicate a safer path through a treacherous ravine. Their aid was a fragile, dangerous act of rebellion. Naimum, bidder tarsasai kiti seords or hidden, maikitai kiti vibasosai kiti vide, laimum naimum bidder tarsasai kiti 5, laiman maikiti vibasosai kiti 5. A desperate, fragmented telepathic warning from the lumens pierced through the constant ironclad static. A solar flare of unprecedented magnitude was imminent. It was a solar superstorm, capable of unleashing not just devastating radiation, but a planet-wide electromagnetic pulse, EMP, that would fry all unshielded electronics. Seek shelter. Your technology, it will fail. The ironclads, however, scoffed. They transmitted their own arrogant boast. A colossal, plasma shield array was activating around their core cities, a shimmering barrier of pure energy. Our superior technology will protect us. You are on your own. Prepare to witness true power. Their shield was undeniably impressive, a marvel of energy manipulation. But Jim, ever observant, noticed the frantic energy readings being pumped into it. It was a temporary solution, fragile and energy-intensive, designed for short-term critical protection. It was during one of his accidental wanderings, feigning clumsiness near a relay tower, where ironclad energy signatures pulsed strong, that Jolly Jim stumbled upon something critical. He fumbled with his comm toy, activating its covert recording mode. He picked up snippets of ironclad telepathic chatter, raw and unfiltered. His innocent eyes widened as he processed the data. He heard their plans. Not only was their plasma shield array a power-hungry temporary fix, but they intended to actively amplify the solar flare's EMP towards the human zone, ensuring their shelters would be utterly destroyed. They wanted humans eliminated by Cinderis itself, leaving no trace of their weakness. Jim knew he had to get this information to Dr. Thorne. He began his frantic journey back to the human settlement, his usual jovial expression replaced by a grim determination. But Cinderis had a final, cruel surprise. During his secret foray, Jim had been exposed to more than just dust. A potent cocktail of concentrated Cinderis dust and a localized radiation spike, perhaps subtly influenced by the ironclad's energy emissions, began to take its toll. By the time he reached the human outpost, his body was on fire. He stumbled, collapsing into a feverish delirium, unable to speak, unable to transmit the vital intel. His usual jokes twisted into nonsensical ramblings, lost to the rising fever. The solar flare was coming, and humanity, unknowingly, was marching straight into a death trap. The sky above Cinderis erupted. One moment, it was the familiar, turbulent orange-red of volcanic dust and lightning. The next, it was a blinding, impossible white. The solar flare hit with a silent, primal force that rippled through the planet itself. The very ground trembled, not with geological shifts, but with an unseen energy. Solar winds, supercharged with deadly particles, whipped the omnipresent dust into a maelstrom of burning grit that scoured everything. Then came the EMP wave. It wasn't a visible blast, but an invisible hand, striking with terrifying precision. Within the human colony, the sophisticated, sleek metallic shelters provided by the ironclads failed spectacularly. Lights flickered, sputtered, then died, plunging the interiors into an oppressive, dust-choked darkness. Communication systems went silent, replaced by a deafening static that screamed of dead circuits. Life support systems, reliant on delicate electronics, whined, coughed, and then simply stopped. The protective dome, the ironclad's gift, shimmered weakly for a moment, then collapsed inward, its delicate energy grid completely fried. Chaos erupted. People screamed, caught in the sudden suffocating darkness. Trapped under tons of now-dead metal, they gasped for air, their respirators failing, their skin prickling from the sudden onslaught of unfiltered radiation. The ironclad's telepathic taunts, once a distant hum, now resonated with horrifying clarity, mocking their every struggle. Such weak structures, such frail beings. Your end is nigh. This is the natural order. From their core cities, still protected by their plasma shield array, though flickering with visible strain, they watched, impassive. Dr. Aris Thorne stumbled through the darkened corridors of the main command center, his face a mask of despair. The weight of his misplaced trust in the ironclads crushed him. He had brought humanity here, to this end. Commander Eva Rostova barked orders into a dead comm unit, her face grim. She tried to rally her security teams, to pull survivors from the wreckage, but they were helpless against an invisible enemy that rendered their most advanced tools useless. And somewhere amidst the chaos, In a small, cramped medical bay, Jolly Jim lay feverish, his body convulsed, sweat plastering his hair to his forehead. He mumbled incoherently, flashes of ironclad schematics and ominous energy readings, mixing with fragments of bad jokes. He was screaming internally, trying to warn them, but no sound came out, no message could be formed. The very information that could have saved them was trapped, unheard, in his compromised mind. Madad Sunain. In the midst of this utter devastation, one figure seemed oddly calm. Blinky Sam. He was a sight, covered head to toe in reddish cinderous dust, his hair a tangled mess, constantly blinking, as if fighting off sleep. He often muttered to himself, arguing with geological samples he held in his hand, or trying to make a battery from a strange volcanic rock. He was a civil engineer by trade, but his true obsession lay in primitive building methods, preferring the raw power of natural materials over the delicate complexity of advanced alloys. He had always been an oddity on Earth. His theories about Earth shielding and natural energy flows dismissed as the ramblings of a quirky enthusiast. As the cries of the dying echoed around them, Sam was not panicking about fried circuits. He was pointing at the ground. "The old ways," he mumbled, his voice raspy but insistent. "Dig deep, the planet's own shield. Rock, clay. It conducts the pulse, makes it go poof into the ground. Radiation, the density, it stops it." He argued that Cinderis's incredibly dense volcanic rock would inherently block the lethal radiation, and that a sufficiently thick layer of Earth would simply absorb the EMP, harmlessly dissipating its energy. Dr. Thorne, distraught, barely heard him. "Sam, we need power filters, life support, not mud huts." "We don't have time for your archaic experiments, Sam." Commander Rostova snapped, trying to pry a piece of wreckage off a trapped survivor. "This isn't Earth." But Sam kept going, his eyes gleaming with an almost unhinged conviction. He was already scraping at the ground with a broken shovel, pulling samples of the strange, resilient Cinderis clay. "It's better than Earth. It has its own armor. We just need to listen." Unbeknownst to them, the lumens still present in their subtle telepathic way focused their efforts on Sam. They projected mental images into his mind. Not commands, but suggestions. Visions of deep geological fault lines, of stable subterranean caverns, of specific mineral veins that would offer the most profound protection. Their influence was subtle, a reinforcing hum in Sam's already unconventional thought process, strengthening his belief that Cinderis itself held the key to their survival. While the sophisticated, high-tech shelters crumpled and humanity choked on dust and despair, Blinky Sam, the clumsy, dirt-covered engineer who talked to rocks, was beginning to see a path forward. A path built not on fragile electronics, but on the raw, unyielding power of the planet itself. The chaotic screams had faded, replaced by the grim silence of despair and the soft, rasping breaths of the dying. Dr. Aris Thorne and Commander Eva Rostova surveyed the wreckage of their high-tech shelters, the EMP-fried machinery inert, the air growing thick with dust, and the metallic tang of irradiated atmosphere. Their pride, their hope, lay shattered. Then, a voice, reedy but insistent, cut through the gloom. "We dig, we build. Now." It was Blinky Sam, covered in more cinderous dust than human. His eyes wide and blinking rapidly. He wasn't asking. He was stating. He held up a shard of volcanic rock. This is our shield, the planet's own armor." His words, once dismissed as ramblings, now sounded like the desperate cries of a prophet. Thorne looked at the dying faces of his people, then at the unwavering conviction in Sam's eyes. They had no other option. "All right, Sam," he rasped, "tell us what to do." A flicker of triumph, quickly masked by his usual twitchy energy, crossed Sam's face. He launched into his plan, a whirlwind of technical jargon mixed with earthy analogies. "We're not building on Cinderis, we're building with it. We dig deep, the deeper, the better. The rock here, it's dense, full of natural shielding properties. Like putting on a really, really thick lead jacket for the sun." He demonstrated with his hands, making a shooing motion. And the clay. Oh, the clay here is magnificent. Binds like concrete, and it's got funny little magnetic bits that just eat EMP like snacks. The work was brutal, a return to the most basic human struggle for survival. Armed with scavenged pickaxes, dented shovels, and their own raw strength, the remaining humans began to dig. The cinderous ground was tough, unyielding volcanic rock that chipped and broke their tools, but they persevered. They unearthed vast quantities of the unique, reddish cinderous clay, a strange substance that felt both gritty and remarkably pliable. Sam, seemingly tireless, was everywhere, directing, explaining, even physically demonstrating how to mix the clay with crushed rock to form an incredibly strong, radiation-resistant mortar. "This boulder," Sam would announce, wrestling a large rock into place, "is being stubborn, but I think I'm winning. Just needs a good talking to, eh?" He'd grunt, strain, and then, with a final heave, position it perfectly. He often burst into strange, off-key songs while working, tunes that had no discernible melody, but somehow kept the rhythm of their arduous labor going. He'd stumble over loose rocks, sending dirt flying, only to pop up with a sheepish grin and a witty, self-deprecating remark. His madness was becoming their anchor, his eccentric humor, a vital balm against the grim reality. This wasn't just about building temporary bunkers. Sam's vision stretched far beyond. He was building for longevity for thousands of years. He'd whisper to Thorn about tapping the planet's pulse. His plans included incorporating geothermal energy taps, drilling into Cinderus's volcanic core to draw stable, shielded power for life support, lighting and air filtration, systems completely independent of the solar flare's destructive reach. He sketched complex, closed-loop ecosystems for subterranean grow beds and advanced water recycling, turning the toxic planet into a self-sustaining haven. The bunkers were designed with intricate, multi-layered walls that not only blocked radiation, but also effectively absorbed and dissipated EMP energy, transforming the flare's destructive power into benign warmth that subtly heated their living spaces. Crucially, the lumens continued their subtle, vital support. While the humans toiled, they would project mental images to Sam, not just geological maps, but complex energy signatures of Cinderus's deep core, guiding him to optimal locations for geothermal vents. They showed him how to identify specific mineral veins within the rock that would enhance the EMP shielding, pushing his primitive designs into something far more advanced than any high-tech system could have achieved. Their alliance, forged in silence and desperation, was deepening. As the humans toiled, a new, more profound sound emerged from the Ironclad's territory. The proud hum of their plasma shield array, once a symbol of their superiority, became a strained whine. Then, a series of shuddering pulses. Visible cracks appeared in their shimmering energy barrier. It was draining too much power, its emitters were burning out, and its temporary nature was being exposed by the relentless solar flare. Their arrogant telepathic boasts turned into frantic, panicked whispers, just barely audible through the roiling dust storms. Below the surface of Cinderus, humanity dug. With every shovel full of dirt, every rock laid, every metal sheet hammered into place, they built not just shelters, but defiance. They were proving that true strength lay not in sophisticated, fragile machines, but in the raw ingenuity and indomitable will of the human spirit. The solar flare reached its devastating peak. High above the human settlement, the Ironclad's magnificent plasma shield array, once a symbol of their untouchable superiority, began to fail spectacularly. The shimmering energy field flickered violently, struggling against the relentless assault. With a final agonizing groan that echoed through the planet's atmospheric hum, it collapsed entirely. Massive chunks of their high-tech cities, left exposed, were instantly ravaged by the supercharged solar winds and EMP, plunging into darkness. The Ironclads, once proud masters of advanced technology, found themselves utterly vulnerable. From within their crude, yet miraculously functional, underground shelters, the humans watched. Dr. Aris Thorne saw the Ironclad cities go dark, a grim satisfaction battling with a sense of awe at the sheer scale of the solar fury. The Ironclads had expected humanity to be wiped out. Instead, they were enduring. And the Ironclads themselves were suffering. Their telepathic cries, once filled with arrogant mockery, were now ragged whispers of fear and confusion. They were weakening, their bodies visibly dimming as their life-sustaining systems, designed around their advanced but now useless tech, faltered. Then, a desperate, almost pathetic plea pierced the mental silence. It was Elder Crethor, the ironclad leader, his once commanding telepathic voice now a fragile thread of despair. "Weaklings, how did you survive? We require aid. Your methods, they hold. Aid us, or we perish." The admission was a monumental blow to their pride, a humiliation that resonated across the vast expanse of Cinderis. A fierce debate erupted within the human bunkers. "Let them die," one survivor raged, a face still streaked with the ash of their lost shelters. "They tried to kill us. Let them taste their own poison." The pain of betrayal was raw, the thirst for vengeance palpable. But Dr. Thorne, his gaze steady, raised a hand. "Revenge won't save us, or build a future," he stated, his voice carrying the weight of his renewed conviction. He looked at Blinky Sam, whose messy, dirt-covered face glowed with quiet pride. "They underestimated us. Their arrogance led to their downfall. Believing them to die, that's not who we are. Not anymore." Sam, ever practical, chimed in. "They know this planet better than anyone. Their geological data, their resource knowledge, it could be invaluable. We help them, yes, but on our terms. This isn't mercy, it's securing our future and proving our strength." Commander Eva Rostova, initially leaning towards vengeance, nodded slowly. Sam was right. This was a chance to rewrite their history, not repeat the Ironclad's mistakes. The Lumens, sensing the shift in human thought, sent a wave of subtle telepathic affirmation, reinforcing the path of conditional aid. Dr. Thorne transmitted humanity's demands, firm and uncompromising. Surrender of authority. The Ironclads must immediately cede all control of Cinderis to a newly formed Joint Human-Lumen Council. Their rule on Cinderis was over. Technological disclosure. They must share all their scientific and technological knowledge, every blueprint, every energy source, every bit of data they possessed. Containment zones. They would be confined to specific designated containment zones, much smaller, heavily monitored areas where humans, guided by Sam's designs, would build specialized bunkers adapted to ironclad biology. They would not be allowed to leave these zones without explicit permission from the Council. Acknowledgement of deception, and finally, a crucial, humiliating demand. Elder Crethor and the Ironclad Collective must publicly, telepathically, acknowledge their deceit and express regret for their actions against humanity. It was a forced confession, a bitter pill to swallow for a species that prided itself on dominance. Elder Crethor's telepathic response was filled with a palpable sense of internal struggle, rage, humiliation, but ultimately, desperate acceptance. He had no choice. Extinction or submission. He chose submission, a monumental blow to the Ironclad ego. Under Sam's meticulous guidance, human and Lumen engineers began the arduous task of constructing the Ironclad's containment bunkers. It was a strange sight, the primitive humans, having just survived by their wits, now building shelters for their former oppressors. The process was efficient if cold. The Ironclads, now physically weakened and reliant on human expertise, begrudgingly assisted. Their forms, once radiating power, now moved with a fragile dependence. Their arrogance was replaced by a sullen, simmering resentment, but also a grudging, almost imperceptible shift towards respect for human ingenuity. They were trapped, not by physical bars, but by the very atmosphere that sustained them, an atmosphere now controlled and maintained by human technology. Within their new, human-built containment bunkers, the Ironclads slowly regained their strength. As their life support systems stabilized, powered by human-designed geothermal taps, their ancient arrogance began to creep back. Elder Crethor, observing his revitalized people, saw their dependence not as a defeat, but as a temporary, humiliating setback. They whispered of vengeance, of reclaiming their dominance, and secretly began to adapt their own salvaged technology, attempting to bypass human control and weaponize the very systems designed to keep them alive. Humanity, meanwhile, began to rebuild and thrive. The immediate threat of the solar flare had passed, and the ironclads were seemingly contained. Dr. Thorne oversaw the planning of new permanent settlements, while Commander Rostova focused on securing their expanded territory. There was a sense of fragile peace, a cautious optimism, but the peace was shattered. Jolly Jim, humanity's secret shield, had fallen critically ill again. What began as a recurring fever from his previous exposure to Cinderis's raw environment intensified, coupled with a unique, aggressive pathogen native to the planet. He lay unresponsive in the medical bay, his consciousness lost in a haze of delirium. His usual jokes and vital warnings were silent. Without Jim's uncanny ability to detect subtle alien activities, humanity was blind. The ironclads, seizing this window of opportunity, launched a massive, coordinated surprise attack. They had managed to repurpose their specialized bunker power conduits, converting them into localized sonic emitters. Their plan was brutal: destabilize the new human underground settlements through resonant vibrations, causing structural collapse, while simultaneously deploying small hardened drones designed to bypass human air filters. The attack was devastating. A low, throbbing hum vibrated through the ground, intensifying until concrete fractured and lights shattered. Walls buckled, causing immediate loss of life and significant destruction across multiple human settlements. People screamed, caught off guard in the sudden, violent chaos. Commander Rostova, reacting instantly, ordered defensive positions, but the invisible enemy seemed to strike from everywhere at once, tearing through their nascent infrastructure. It was a brutal, painful lesson in misplaced trust. But humanity, though caught off guard, was not broken. Their new primitive infrastructure, built by hand from Cinderis's own elements, proved far more resilient than the ironclads had anticipated. Unlike the high-tech shelters, these structures didn't fail from EMP. They absorbed the shock. Blinky Sam, covered in dust and debris from the tremors, his eyes wide but determined, rallied the engineers. "They think they're smart, eh?" he mumbled, a strange glint in his eye. "But they don't understand the planet we built with Cinderis, and Cinderis, she can bite back." Sam, now fully in his element, revealed the true, terrifying potential of their, quote, permanent survival solution. He had incorporated hidden, fail-safe offensive capabilities into their very infrastructure, anticipating future threats from the planet itself, or from any hostile entity. "Engage geothermal disruption protocol," Sam bellowed. The same geothermal energy taps that powered their bunkers, designed for stable energy flow, were now rerouted. Massive amounts of energy were channeled into specific fault lines directly beneath the ironclad's containment zones, causing localized, violent seismic activity. The ironclad's bunkers, though strong, were not built to withstand their own planet's fury, now amplified by human control. The ground beneath them convulsed, tearing apart their foundations. "EMP reinforcement, focus on ironclad energy signatures," Sam barked next. The very shield wall materials that absorbed the solar flare's EMP could be reversed. The human bunkers began to project controlled, devastating EMP pulses, aimed precisely at the ironclad's still fragile salvage technology within their crumbling zones, frying their reactivated weapon systems and communication arrays. Finally, Sam ordered atmospheric manipulation. With the lumen's subtle guidance, humans learned to control small, localized pockets of Cinderis's original toxic atmosphere. They used their new, powerful ventilation systems, now functioning as atmospheric pumps, to direct concentrated clouds of the abrasive acidic air towards the ironclad's collapsing containment zones, forcing them deeper into their disintegrating bunkers, choking them on the very air they once ruled. This was the humanity fuck yeah moment. Humans, fighting with tools built from literal dirt and scrap, utterly dominated the ironclads. It wasn't a fair fight, it was a total, humiliating rout. They used their deep understanding of Cinderis, their inherent resilience, and their sheer ingenuity to outmaneuver and overpower the once superior ironclads. It wasn't just about survival, it was about proving their worth, not to the ironclads, but to themselves. Commander Eva Rostova, her face grim but resolute amidst the dust and the tremors, delivered the final, telepathic ultimatum to Elder Krithor, whose voice was now barely a whisper of agony. "Leave Cinderis, forever. Your presence is no longer tolerated. This planet is ours now. And we remember." Battered, broken and utterly defeated, the remaining ironclad vessels, what few could still fly, were forced to limp away from Cinderis, never to return. The planet, now cleansed of its oppressive rulers, belonged to a new, unexpected alliance. The dust from the final battle settled, revealing a Cinderis both scarred and liberated. The human settlements, though bearing the wounds of the ironclad's betrayal, stood resilient. The losses were heavy, the grief palpable, but it solidified humanity's resolve. They had faced extinction multiple times, and emerged not just survivors, but conquerors of their own fate. Cinderis, no longer just a desperate survival camp, began its true transformation into a home. The permanent shelters, born from Blinky Sam's primitive genius, became the foundation of sprawling, self-sustaining underground cities. Tunnels, carved deep into the planet's core, connected vast caverns that hummed with life, powered by the boundless geothermal energy Sam had unlocked. The surface, still a realm of harsh beauty with its volcanic peaks and swirling dust, became a place for controlled exploration and careful resource gathering, no longer an immediate death trap. The Lumens, now free from the oppressive shadow of the ironclads, fully integrated with human society. Their graceful, bioluminescent forms moved freely among the human settlements, their gentle telepathic presences weaving into the fabric of daily life. They shared their deep knowledge of Cinderis's intricate ecology, its hidden energy flows, and its unique life forms, revealing secrets the ironclads had only ever sought to exploit. A vibrant cultural exchange blossomed. Humans, with their pragmatic problem-solving and direct, logical approaches, taught the Lumens about practical engineering, sustainable resource management, and the power of collaborative construction. In return, the Lumens shared their ancient wisdom on psychic harmony, ecological balance, and even subtle forms of telepathy, expanding human consciousness beyond its physical confines. Cinderis became a beacon of true interspecies cooperation, a living testament to what could be built when fear and dominance were replaced by mutual respect. Jolly Jim, weakened but alive, slowly recovered in the gleaming yet earthy medical bay. When he finally awoke, lucid and free of the fever's haze, he revealed his true role as a spy. He spoke of the ironclad's final insidious plan, expressing profound regret that his illness had silenced his warning. To his surprise, there was no anger, only gratitude. His unique ability to blend in, his sharp mind, hidden beneath layers of clumsiness and humor, made him a unique hero. He continued to be the colony's morale booster, but now his jokes carried a knowing wink, and his observations for security became an open, celebrated part of his work. Blinky Sam, once the subject of ridicule, was now a revered scientific leader. His primitive methods were the bedrock of their new civilization. He continued his messy, intuitive experiments, constantly pushing the boundaries of sustainable technology, dreaming of applying Cinderis's lessons to other harsh worlds. He still talked to rocks, but now people listened, eager to understand his insights. Humanity had not just survived, it had evolved. They were tougher, wiser, more self-reliant. They had learned that true strength stemmed not from inherited high-tech reliance, but from raw ingenuity, unyielding resilience, and the indomitable power of unity. The ironclads, with all their advanced weaponry, had failed because they relied solely on external power and rigid systems. Humans, with their hands in the dirt, had found strength within themselves and the very planet they inhabited. The final scene on Cinderis was one of enduring hope. Vast, self-sustaining underground cities hummed with life, their geothermal glow bathing the cavern walls. On the surface, human lumen exploration teams ventured out, their vehicles a blend of robust human engineering and subtle lumen energy manipulation, charting new territories. The harsh elements that once threatened to destroy them were now harnessed, transformed into sources of power and inspiration. Cinderis, once a crucible of death, had become a thriving sanctuary, a living monument to humanity's spirit, proving that against all odds, they could not only endure, but truly flourish.